Welcome, everyone. It's become a habit for me. I'm Jan Katzew, by the way, to bring in really all of the shiurim in which I'm involved uh, with music, and it felt appropriate to do so today with colleagues and colleagues and dear friends as well. Uh, and over the course of, I guess now the next about 50 some odd minutes, 55 minutes, I thought it would be appropriate as we are in anticipation of Purim uh, to bring in some joy, to seek to increase joy in our personal and professional lives, and a bit of a vidui, as I mentioned to Gila and Micah initially. I don't know if you have a similar minhag, but there are times I know in which I I need a certain sermon, so I give it, and it's really for me. And if there are other people there, that's fine. I certainly feel they're welcome, but I know I need it. And so today is one of those. I feel like certainly it's almost a bit of a play on Kol Nidre, Miyom Kippurim Zeh, Miyom Purim, Kippurim in this case, from one Purim to the next. Uh, I don't know where you were last Purim, but for many of us, it was the very last moment of any kind of quote normalcy pre-COVID-19. And here we are again, anticipation of Purim in just a day and a half or two. And here we are again trying to create some sort of makeshift celebration. And I think that it is important for us to draw upon the reservoir of our very rich and hopefully profound and yet timely tradition of Marbim Besimcha. My thought is this: if you're willing, this is clearly going to be an intimate group conversation, and I don't know if you actually took the Missima to heart, and if you have brought something, an individual slide that would depict joy for you. If you did, then perhaps you can just send me a private chat. I don't. The idea for this is not halbanat panim befarhesia. It's not to embarrass anybody, but if you are willing to share that, then I'll definitely make time in between each of the shkufiot, each of the slides in a PowerPoint presentation to give each of us opportunity to give voice to Simcha in our lives. I think it's the case that you all received a syllabus from the fall semester course that I facilitated in Mussar. And
I'll bring it up on the screen now. I'll put it in the chat. Yeah.
All right, you can put it. It's not necessary for this, but the reason I shared it with you is to give a greater context, perhaps, for where it is that I'm drawing from and coming from with respect to, in this case, Simcha. Simcha is, as I understand it, one of many midot, many soul traits that we are seeking to develop in ourselves, as well as challenge and nurture in others. And I think, in some respects, quite frankly, Simcha gets a bad rap, which is kind of strange, because I, for example, was looking at the Mussar Torah commentary that was published by the CCAR just this last year or so. And in that context, in that anthology, there isn't even a single parasha, a single commentary that's devoted to Simcha. Simcha actually appears. It's a pretty rare word in Torah. It only appears about 12 times or so. If I were playing sort of Jeopardy or Jeopardy with colleagues, I would ask which of the books in the Tanakh has the most appearances of the word Simcha, and you would probably be, as I was, surprised, Kohelet. And the rabbis play with this a fair amount, recognizing that that actually Kohelet is a lot more about counterpoise and counterpart and dialectic than a philosophical depressant of some kind. So here we go. In just a moment, I will get us set here. All right. Here we go. If you can give me a thumbs up if you can, to make sure that you can see the screen. Okay, great. So here we are, Marbim B'Simcha, and first question is, where does this text come from? And I thought it would be appropriate to put it in some context. Misha nichnas av mim'atin b'simcha. And that indeed is the introduction in Ta'anit to what ends up being, again in dialectic, in tension. We have this ebb and flow, the lowest ebb being with Chodesh Av, or some might even know it as Menachem Av, and yet we have the counterpart, which seeks to counterpoise Av with Adar, Misha Nichnas Adar Marbin B'Simcha. And here already I think, have a certain understanding that joy in addition, or Simcha in addition to being a soul trait, a quality, is also somehow quantifiable. So the first question that I'm posing for us, and it is not a rhetorical question, is the one here: is it reasonable to ask a person to increase joy? How does that strike you? Yes, Micah.
That's a question. I didn't get a close enough look at the Hebrew. The way you had it translated there was that when you enter the month of Av, you decrease acts of joy. Does it say acts, or what does it say? What's the Hebrew there?
Yeah. That is not, this one is not my translation. This is actually Sfaria, that one. There are others in this deck that are I will take responsibility for the translation, but I noticed and I preserved the asymmetry. The text in the Hebrew and a bit of Aramaic there also is symmetrical, but the English rendering is not.
Okay. So then what that made me think about was that I think it is a little bit unreasonable to ask people to increase joy. It's like, it's like looking at someone who's depressed and saying, just feel better, which we all know is not fair. But at the same time, there are things that we can do to feel better. And anyone who's studied mental health, which is all of us in some way, knows that, acts of mindfulness and daily meditation and prayer and community, these are things that make you feel better over time, even if not immediately. So then the translation of increasing acts of joy, to me, it's a little bit like Na'aseh v'nishma, right? We're going to get together and feel happy so that we can feel happy. That seems reasonable, even though it feels unreasonable to be asked to just snap out of it or be happy.
I might add also and hi Jan, it's good to see you.
It's great to see you.
I might add the difference and the importance of defining joy and happiness. And Rabbi Greenstein in Memphis talks about how happiness is it's unreasonable to ask someone to be happy, right? That is much larger, right? That's a more vague, and you're happy in your life. But joy is really a moment. It's more fleeting. It's more like you're saying, acts of joy, right? So I think it's, even mourners feel moments of joy, but happiness is unreasonable. Joy, I think, is a fair ask.
Wonderful. It really is great to be among colleagues. I'm thriving on that. So thank you. Indeed, Rabbi Greenstein and others before him have spoken about distinctions between Osher with an Aleph and Simcha. You may want to think, for example, of the first Psalm, Ashrei Ha'ish. It is the case in general that Osher is individual. Simcha is in relationship. Simcha is a celebration, generally speaking, betzavta, befarhesia. And actually, Simcha appears more in Tanakh than Osher. And then there's a conversation, of course, between Athens and Jerusalem, between eudaimonia, between the notion of as you were describing, happiness and joy, and joy being, as you said, this understandably evanescent, ephemeral, transitory, momentary feeling, and that is something that at least our tradition, our rabbinic tradition in particular, believes is both possible and desirable. And we can certainly, take issue with our forebears here, but it's important to note that they also raise the conversation about, well, what about people who are badikaon? What about people who are depressed? Is it a reasonable ask to be not happy, but to be joyful or more joyful? And I think that we'll sit with that question for a bit. Okay, we're going to go back to PowerPoint and whoops. I don't know how this is happening. Give me a sec. There we go. Okay. Now, some of you may be familiar with Alei Shor, which is the magnum opus of Shlomo Wolbe. Arguably, maybe it isn't even arguable, the greatest teacher, student, and practitioner of Mussar in the last generation. He died in 2005. And this is a mixture of my translation and a prior translation as well. Most of Wolbe's work is not translated, but there are excerpts that have been translated by a whole panoply of authors. So here is his most, I would say, succinct statement with respect to joy. Heaven and earth, man and woman, soul and body, they are in, and this is a bit of wordplay that's, I think, purposeful, apposition and opposition. They are not always so. There are times when they influence each other positively and when they are united. Whenever there is a concatenation of simcha, a concatenation of opposites, there is joy. That is the meaning and essence of joy. Wherever it is found, there is connection or unity. And in Wolbe's world, and hopefully in some respects in ours as well, this is a connection that can be ben adam lachavero, between human beings, or ben adam lamakom, between a person and God. I'm going to stop here and see if there is anyone who wishes to share a slide that you brought, and if not, I will subject you to mine.
Can I just say something before?
Of course.
I shared a slide with you, but I don't know if so this was really interesting what you just said about the connection, because sometimes when I read Mussar, it's like we need to be in the center, like to balance things out. So it's like being in a center, and then when I'm thinking of it graphically, it's like I need to be in equal measures apart from the
Yes.
opposites. But this is like a different way of putting it. It's like bringing the opposites together. So it's not standing further apart from the kitzoniyut, but it's bringing the kitzoniyut together and mixing them. So that was much beautiful, that connection thing. Thanks.
I think that great. I think that you're citing already from Hilchot Deot, already from Rambam's Mishnah Torah, the sense of Shvil Zahav and finding a golden mean, as it were, and thinking that the Chacham, the person who has acquired wisdom, is one who is in equipoise, in balance. That is Rambam. However, there are radicals. I think Art Green's, one of his later books is Radical Judaism, I think. So he is, again, not the first. Ramchal was radical. Luzzatto was radical. Bachya ibn Pakuda was radical. So it is the case that, we all have this massive Rambam shadow somehow for most of the last 1,000 years, and tend to think, in this case with respect to Mussar, as though he set the tone, and that indeed what we should be seeking is the middle way, however you wish to translate it. But there are others who say, Lav Dafka, no, we need extremists. We need people who are extreme in their kindness, extreme in their compassion. And typically, that's not the Chacham, that's the Hasid. And so there's this ongoing conversation, ongoing debate, ongoing dilemma, ongoing dialogue or duologue, whatever you want to call it, between these different ideal types. Some of you may have read, whether you were at HUC or since, Shlosha Tipusim Shel Yirat Shamayim, 3 types of Jewish spirituality by Gershom Scholem. And Scholem, relates the Talmid Chacham and the Hasid and the Tzaddik, etc., and indicates that there's been this, ongoing conversation about the meaning of those terms and what it is ultimately that each of us could be aspiring to. So I see in the chat there are, okay. Let's see, several of you sent me something. So let's start with the first person who sent me something. So this will be potential security issue detected. By the way, it is now possible to have closed captioning. So if anyone needs it, please do it. All right, it's downloading, whatever that means. Here we go. We're getting there. Maybe should I download all of these? Come on.
Do you want us to send them to you?
They were sent in a chat, and so my computer. I'm not downloading anything. My computer is running.
I allowed everyone to be able to share if you want.
Okay, yeah, I thought everybody could share a screen. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, I think everyone can share.
Okay,
now.
So Zachary, would you be kind enough?
Happy
Can you do
to.
that?
Yeah, I'll quickly. Let me see. I gotta pull it back up.
Okay.
This is not the one I was necessarily planning on sharing, but this is the one that's readily available that brings me happiness. It's my little boy Abraham. Is super cute. Let me see if I can find super quickly because I sent it to you. Open.
I think I can open it now.
This is the one I wanted to share.
Okay, great.
So this is Jan will know this. Me and Jan worked together when I wrote my thesis on Abraham Joshua Heschel. And Heschel has this iconic photo of him sitting on these steps in front of HUC. And this is Abraham Bernard Goodman, who is named after Abraham Joshua Heschel, sitting in Heschel's space. and I think it's cute, and I also think it's like a Lador Vador moment. And also, my name is Simcha. My Hebrew name is Simcha. So there's lots of layers of Simcha in this photo.
Oh, that's so sweet. I'm looking and I was reminded of, from Mimoshe LeMoshe, from from Moshe Rabbeinu to Moshe to Rambam to Rambaman to Mendelssohn. There was no one like. So here we have from Avraham to Avraham to Avraham. How sweet.
From your mouth to God's ears. May he be a justice warrior.
Oh, that's wonderful. Let's have another. Jeff, would you be kind enough?
If you can't do it this way, let me see if I can do it this way. No. I'm trying to open it up. I've got it on. No.
I think I can open it.
There you go. You can try to expand it if you like. You got it there. Oh, no. Do you see it now? Oh, boy. I'm dueling screens. Let's see here. Nope, that didn't do it either. I can't do it. It's a picture of a waterfall because, as you know, Jan, I love waterfalls.
Try it one more time.
Okay, let's see what happens when I do this.
Here, I can share Jeff's. Do you want me to do that?
Please, if you got it.
Here it is. You see it?
Okay.
Okay, it's small. It's actually, I'm a waterfall fanatic. I've collected probably 1,000 of them. And this is one of my favorites, if not my favorites. It's called Bond Falls. It's in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I was actually there a few months ago during the summer. And I could do a whole thing about why I like waterfalls. In some ways, they remind me of Kedusha, because I don't believe that Kedusha is static. I believe that, not unlike the water cycle, Kedusha goes from heaven to earth and back again. And just as water falls as rain, becomes streams, rivers, lakes, and then evaporates and goes back into being clouds. That's a lot of talk in very quick terms, but that's probably why I like waterfalls. Also, they engage in every sense, including the sense to pick up negative ions. That's all I'll say about it right now.
Thank you. And we'll have one more now. I think Micah.
Sure. So let me share my screen. So first of all, Zachary, you inspired me to show this, but this isn't the one I was going to show, but same location. These are my kids 2 years ago, or two of my kids. But I don't think of this as an Abraham Joshua Heschel. I actually think of it as my son Yair making a Bonya Shore face. Looks just like Bonya in that picture. But the picture that I wanted to show actually was this one. Where did it go? Oh no, hold on. Here it is. This is my extended family lighting Hanukkah candles together. So this is me and my kids, my brother and his wife and kids, my sister and her husband and kids, and my parents. And I am so grateful and joyful right now during this. They're all in the States, and I haven't seen them in over a year because we can't cross the border. And so the joy of being able to be together and actually having been together more than over the last year than we have in the last 20 years because COVID sort of forced us to find new and creative ways to get together. So that's really been one of the sources of my joy.
Wonderful. I'm smiling inside, just thinking about what each of you has depicted, and I hope it'll be the case that this will help each of us, as it were, marbe or marba b'simcha. We are going to continue.
I think we have one from Elise also.
Oh, we have several more. I was hoping to intersperse them, if that's all right.
Oh, okay.
Is that all right?
You're the teacher.
I'm just along for the ride. So to adumbrate the two sources of simcha that Wolbe cites, and not only Wolbe, there is the one with which I suspect all of us are quite familiar, to be satisfied, to be fulfilled, to be joyful with who we are and what we have, what we possess. The other we're going to see is a different kind of simcha, and that is a simcha that has to do with mitzvot. So this I've rendered myself in English. So I assume responsibility for the English translation, and I tried to, even in the Hebrew, indicate that I wanted to be at least somewhat gender sensitive. So ma'amin or ma'amina amitit צריכה להיות שמח בחלקו or שמחה בחלקה. כי ברור לו or לה שאין הקדוש ברוך הוא מקפח כל בריאה. A true believer needs to be joyful with their portion, because it is clear to them that the Holy One of Blessing does not discriminate against any creature. And with the powers that God gave them, people can definitely achieve fulfillment. Therefore, a person must accept themselves as they are and be satisfied with all that they have, spiritually and materially. This is the profundity of joy, that a person finds peace with themselves, with their destiny, and lives in harmony with themselves. This is sort of the epitomized definition of an aspect or a facet of simcha according to Wolbe. And just to say a little bit about the context in which he was writing this, he was a mashgiach ruchani, a position actually that I think may be missing at a place like HUCJIR. That is to say, someone who isn't concerned with the grades of the student, with the specific knowledge base of the student, but with the spiritual life and spiritual growth and moral growth of that person. And I think it's always helpful for us, even as a Klei Kodesh, to remind ourselves of what is both possible and desirable. Because in order for anything to be ethical, it needs to be both. And it really wouldn't be ethical to expect of everyone, say, to be joyful if it was desirable but not possible. So the challenge I think that we have before us, not only in anticipation of Chag Purim, but also during even Av, quite frankly, as well as Chodesh Adar, is to what extent can we ratchet up or down the degree to which we find joy with who we are and what we have in the course of our lives. Purposely, I'm going to share this slide deck with you. Purposely, I left a blank piece, but these are the two of the Birchot HaShachar that are explicitly associated in Mussar with attaining joy and a reawakening joy on a daily basis. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li kol tzorki, and Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. That when we are reciting these in the context of Mussar, that is the time that we are supposed to reactivate, reactualize the simcha, that it comes from the acceptance and for satisfaction and fulfillment that exist in the course of our lives. It also, ironically, is connected somewhat in Talmud to Birkat HaMazon. You may know that there's an extended conversation about v'achalta v'savata uverachta. Well, what if you're not satisfied with what you ate? What if you didn't like it? What if you didn't have enough? Do you still have to say Birkat HaMazon? And you probably know the Shakla Vataria, the back and forth. And in the end, they say, absolutely you do. Even if you didn't eat enough, even if you didn't like the food, you have to say Birkat HaMazon. Why? Because we're supposed to bless on what is partial. If we wait for everything to be full and complete, we may go through our entire lives and never be satisfied and never say a bracha. And we're supposed to be reminded of this sort of attitude, if you will, or stance in approach to life by each day finding a way to access and reignite our midah, our soul trait of simcha. The last piece is very personal, but this is what I personally have recited, I don't know, certainly for 30 years, maybe 40 years at this point, although I've amended it slightly and the emendation is here. And this is the way for me that I personally seek to activate a sense of simcha in my life, not only approaching Purim, not only during Adar, but kol yom, chol yom. Adonai lamdeni limnot et kol birchotai ulaharichotan, ulaharichotan. Dear God, or God, teach me to count my blessings and to appreciate them. And this is what I added, to prolong them. Because, and I'm anticipating now the very last of the slides in this deck, I think this is a challenge that is much bigger than Jan Katzew, and maybe would be appropriate to mention in the context of colleagues. It seems to me, at least in the United States, I can't speak for Canada, but in the culture in which I feel pretty immersed, liberal Jews in general understand Shiva much better than Sheva Brachot. And they observe Shiva to a greater extent than we do Sheva Brachot. And that I'm reminding myself in this tefillah pratit, personal prayer, that I need to do something which doesn't come easily to me, which is to prolong and first accept and appreciate and then prolong the joys that are in my life. And the fourth quadrant I left for you, because it may be the case that you already have a daily tefillah pratit, or on the contrary, it may provide a challenge for you to do so. The other simcha, and then after this we'll take a break for more sharing of our own smachot. The other simcha, in addition to being the one for appreciating and finding joy in our portion in life, is a simcha that is associated with mitzvah. And here is a very succinct excerpt from the Bavli, from Masechet Shabbat, in which God says, I commended mirth, shibachti ani et hasimcha. That is the joy of a mitzvah. And of mirth, what does it accomplish? That is joy that is not the joy of a mitzvah. The praise of joy mentioned here is to teach you that the divine presence rests upon an individual, neither from an atmosphere of sadness, nor from an atmosphere of laziness, nor from an atmosphere of laughter, nor from an atmosphere of frivolity, nor from an atmosphere of idle conversation, not from an atmosphere of idle chatter, but rather from an atmosphere imbued with the joy of a mitzvah. And here we have what for me is a dialectic with a very profound message about how joy, one context of engaging in a mitzvah, if you're able to do it with joy, that it counterpoises and counteracts all of these other midot, all of these other ways of being in the world, all of these other traits that all of us possess. So it's suggesting that, and I think more than suggesting, I think it's making a commitment that if you are able to access simcha, it will counterpoise and counteract all of these other tendencies or predilections that we may have. It's really somewhat, I know in the States at least, I think it was Barack Obama's book, The Audacity of Hope, but here there is the audacity of joy. The idea that joy is so powerful, so audacious, I almost want to say so chutzpahdik, that it can defeat all of these other midot, is, I think, a statement that seeks to raise up joy as an incredibly powerful midah connected to the mitzvot. I'm going to stop here. And we need more joy from our personal lives. So Gila, totally appropriate, by the way, for your
נכון.
name. We need Rina, Chedva. Okay, where are you?
Yeah, one second. I'm
I
just
don't mean
looking.
you.
Where,
I mean, where are Gila, Rina, Chedva, Ava, Achava?
where are they? באמת?
Shalom v'reut.
טוב. So, כן, my kids, שקד and Alon. But beyond just enjoying them in general, the Simcha here was a Simcha of mitzvah also, because this was before Shavuot. And they had not only gotten themselves nicely dressed for Chag, but also set the table and made everything pretty. It was just like so nice coming out of the service and seeing this kind of Chag happening at home. So yeah, it caused me a lot of joy.
Beautiful. Thank you. Donnie, I believe you said, am I right?
Yep. So mine also is a family picture. This is my mom. And this picture was taken yesterday, which was her 90th birthday. And we, like Michael was saying, I'm actually in the States and haven't seen my mom now for a year since her last birthday when I was up in Canada. We were able to gather all of the extended family for celebrations yesterday. And, you know, like most of the folks on this call, joy comes from that connection with our family and celebrating, you know, happy moments. And so that's the one I wanted to share today.
Toda. Elise?
Yeah, hi Jan.
Hi, it's wonderful to see you. Wonderful to see everyone.
It's beautiful to learn with you and with everyone's face today. I'm so sorry that I was late. I'm on a subcommittee for the WUPJ Connections 2021, and yeah, it went long. All right, so let me share my photo. So this is from, I guess the last time anyone came together to do Pesach, which was 2 years ago now, almost. This is my home in New York before I moved back to Toronto this summer. And this is my beloved spouse, David. I think everyone knows him. Every year he dresses up like Pharaoh. It's hysterical. And what we did, you know, so we have a 9-year-old, and when we told him we were moving back to Toronto, and he had moved away from here when he was 2, he didn't understand that at the time, but now at the time 8, he understood that when we move, we told him, we collect friends. Everywhere you move, you collect friends. And so what David and I have done in the places that we've lived is done that. We've created family, which is, you know, friends become family, right? And that was based on synagogues that we both worked at, the school that our child went to, other ways that we met people in the neighborhood. And so what you can't see is that that's a Seder table in front, and there are maybe 28 people there.
Wow.
A mix of languages and ethnicities and religions. And by some amazing happenstance, there was a parent of one of our son's classmates who has the most amazing history. She's from Bolivia, but she spent many years working in Russia. And then we also had, if anyone knows Cantor Mo Glasman, so
yeah, sure.
So he lived with that, like in the area, but his parents were originally from Russia, who were our like piano and violin teachers, and also become beloved friends. So they were there also, and so like this like this weird, like Russian, incredible, like musical thing happened where these people who would never have known each other came together, and Fira, Mo's mom, was at the piano playing like classic old folk Russian tunes, and this classmate's mom is singing, and she doesn't have a lick of Judaism in her. And it was just freilich beyond freilich, and the Simcha was there. And so I chose this not just because it was a beautiful moment, but davka to juxtapose some of the joyfulness that we're finding over Zoom. I wanted to really find something that brings me back to being in person with people that I miss so much, that I know we all miss so much. And we were singing and we were eating and drinking way too much vodka, and it was really lovely.
Wonderful. Mazal tov. And I will. Lainey and I just got back Monday from visiting our granddaughter. We are quite blessed, Marbim B'Simcha, because both of us have been vaccinated, and we are holding Emlyn Aurora Turo, who is now 7.5 weeks old. And I would say that arguably the highest title that I hold is Saba. And the idea, again, of each life being miraculous, and here having the potential life actualized in our arms was just really sublime joy. And even though she's no longer in my arms, I'm carrying Emlyn with me as we anticipate Purim and magnify and amplify and increase joy. We have a few more slides, and I will get there in a moment. Here we go. Histapkut. This is, I almost wanted to say, a halfway house to Simcha. It is on the way to Simcha. And Wolbe and others cite the Avot as each one exemplifying an aspect of Histapkut. Histapkut doesn't, like many words in Hebrew, really translate easily. It's something to do with satisfaction, with simplicity, fulfillment, acceptance. All of those would, at various points, be legitimate. So in Breshit Lamed Gimel Yud Aleph, Yaakov says, and this is of course after the wrestling match, etc., Ki Yeshli Kol. Our patriarch Jacob attained the disposition of satisfaction, of histapkut. This is the meaning of his statement, I have plenty. A qualitative approach to acquisitions in this world leads from the disposition of satisfaction to joy in one's portion. How wonderful are the hidden treasures of the disposition of satisfaction. So to unpack this just for a moment, the claim here is that rather than count the quantity of what we have in the course of our lives, whether those acquisitions are material or credentials or some other type of acquisition, we should be considering their quality, not their quantity. And by considering their quality, according to the notion of histapkut, we can be accepting of this, satisfied by them, and that will lead to the ultimate disposition of simcha. But I think it's important to note, and this may be helpful in the context of mental well-being, that to the extent that this is almost scaffolding for Simcha, that Simcha may not be immediately accessible, but it may be possible to build towards it utilizing this midah of histapkut. I don't know if others have a similar practice, but for the last decade, I'd say at least, I've tried whenever I've done any sort of presentation, and I mean not just to colleagues in this context, but to volunteer leaders, to adolescents, to early childhood professionals, to 6-year-olds, as well as in the context of senior adults. Whenever I'm going to quote any male, I'm also always going to find some woman to quote as well, because I am trying not only to be gender sensitive in the context of language, but also to cite mumchim and mumchot, people who are experts, and recognize that, not only men have written Mussar, and in this case, Marla Joy Subeck Spanier wrote in the commentary, Mussar Torah commentary, I mentioned that no one chose the midah of Simcha, and I actually have to confess the midah that I wrote about was chutzpah, which may have its own rationale. But here, this is from Parashat Bechukotai, and Marla Subeck Spanier, does focus on histapkut. From the Hebrew word for enough, it's the antithesis of greed. Where greed breeds insatiable desires, histapkut enables a person to experience satisfaction from having even the most basic needs met. It is contentment without complacency. Elise, would you be kind enough to read the second piece?
Whether we perceive the circumstances of our lives to come from God, fate, chance, or other people, we often experience them as something thrust upon us without our doing. However, the ability to perceive a circumstance as a blessing is, in and of itself, a tremendous blessing, and Mussar calls that perception histapkut.
Thank you very much. Jonathan Sachs, Yeh Zichro Baruch, wrote extensively also about Simcha, and I just excerpted one of his many drashot, in this case, the one entitled The Pursuit of Joy. Actually, Danny, would you be kind enough?
Simcha is the Torah, Simcha in the Torah is never about individual. It is always about something we share. A newly married man does not serve in the army for a year, says the Torah, so that he can stay at home and bring joy to the wife he has married. You shall bring all your offerings to the central sanctuary, says Moses, so that there in the presence of the Lord your God, you and your families shall eat and rejoice in all you've put your hand to, because the Lord your God has blessed you. The festivals, as described in Deuteronomy, are days of joy, precisely because they are occasions of collective celebration. You, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, the Levites in your towns, and the strangers, the fatherless, and the widows living among you. Simcha is the joy shared. It is not something we experience in solitude. I think of Judaism as an ode to joy.
Thank you. And as I already adumbrated, this is the last slide, and it's a question that I ask myself and have sought to respond in multiple contexts. And again, I don't know if it's your experience as rabbis, either personally or professionally, but certainly it is mine that we seem to understand the notion of Shiv'ah being a process, that grief is a process that needs to take time, and comforting is not something that has, a definite terminus ad quem, but there is not necessarily the same appreciation of Sheva Brachot, of joy also being a process. And I write that and raise that question because in addition to the picture that I showed of Lainey and me holding Emlyn, our younger daughter, Kara, and her fiance, Ben, were to have been married in Israel this past October. They are, God willing, B'Shat Tova, to be married in June of 2021. So we are anticipating, in our case, indeed, Sheva Brachot, and wondering, what is it that we can do personally and professionally to light up the notion or lift up the notion that that joy is indeed an integral part of Jewish life. That you've heard, I'm sure, variations on the theme of there's really supposed to be more joy than oi in Jewish life, and we haven't really done that as well as we could have, or lived that as much as we could have. And so that's the man nafkamina. Well, so what? We spent this hour on joy together. Hopefully it was enjoyable for you. I know it was for me, even just to see the faces of friends and colleagues. And I hope it'll be the case. As I said, I'll share the deck here that you can find some other context in which this will be helpful and meaningful to you personally and or professionally. And I certainly thank Gila and Micah for the invitation.
Thank you very much. It was very enjoyable for me. This was wonderful. Toda Rabba, and a really great way to go into Purim this year. I would like to suggest to people, because I don't know how we're doing the emails, but if people would like to send me their email, and then we can start collecting an email list for these meetings. And then I can also send you the syllabus that Jan shared with us, and maybe if you want to share something else and a recording of this. So we'll
Well, I know Dan in Vancouver has the list, and that's how the original emails go out.
Yeah, but I don't know. We'll talk. We'll see if we're able to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Danny. Toda. I'll keep this. Zeo, Jan, thank you so much. This was mamash wonderful. Toda
My
rabba.
pleasure.
Fascinating.
Pleasure and honor, and Marbi b'simcha.
Amen.
Thank
You as
Thank you,
well.
Jen. Chag Sameach, everyone.
Chag Sameach, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, Jan.
My pleasure. Wonderful to see you all.
Yes,
Thank you.
too.
Toda rabba.
Thanks, Jan.
Take care.
Really, really good stuff to think about, Jan. Thank you.
Take care.
Great. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Toda.
Beautiful.
Jan, would you be able to share the PowerPoint with us?
Yes.
Ken,
Yeah,
toda.
absolutely. I
That
will
would be
send it.
amazing.
Yep, of
Ken.
course. Send it right.
Yofi.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Toda.